My name is Dr. John Gilligan. Welcome to the 2021 CINR webinar under our COVID conditions. And of course, this is very unusual to be able to do this kind of technology across the country in many different sites as we switch from one place to another to present various aspects of the program. But we're excited to do so under these conditions. I'm the director of the NEUP Integration Office and also a distinguished university professor of nuclear engineering at NC State University. So again, thank you for being with us. We're coming to you from various sites around the country, as we mentioned, and we're going to present various details of the CINR process and the work scopes and so forth this year. And so it'll be very exciting. But first, we have a special presentation from our leader, Dr. Rita Baranwal. Dr. Baranwal is the Assistant Secretary of Energy in the Department of Energy, also responsible for the Office of Nuclear Energy. She was confirmed by the Senate in June and then appointed in last summer, 2019, going through the entire process. She oversees a budget of about $1.5 billion currently. Her office, the Office of Nuclear Energy, is very important. It sponsors all of our programs. It supports advanced reactors, fuel cycle, existing fleet, and global nuclear energy competitiveness for the U.S. So it's very important. She's been a leader in industry, national labs with BETIS and INL with the GAIN program before she joined DOE headquarters. I have to tell you, for example, we're very excited and thank Department of Energy and Rita in particular for the last year's big increase in our support for the program, NEUP and others at over $65 million. We're very appreciative for that, for her and for all of DOE for that large amount of support. And I have to say also the best I've seen, the best website for the Office of Nuclear Energy is operating right now. So that's a great triumph as well. It's very valuable to spread the importance of nuclear energy to the greater world. And I think that's one way of doing it. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Baranwal right now for her remarks, and then I'll come back later and introduce our first speaker. So Julie, if you want to make that switch.
Okay, I think we're just having Dr. Baranwal. Oh, here she is right now.
There we go.
Thank you.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Yes. Excellent. So good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining. On behalf of the Office of Nuclear Energy, I'd like to welcome you to the FY21 Consolidated Innovative Nuclear Research webinar, the CINR webinar. This webinar is designed to provide researchers the opportunity to fully understand the proposed work scopes for the FY21 CINR funding opportunity announcement, the FOA, provide feedback, and to review the FY 2020 outcomes. This is a really exciting time to be in the nuclear energy field. Over the coming years, we will be working hard to build advanced reactors, make the current fleet more economical, expand market opportunities, and make the nuclear fuel cycle more sustainable. U.S. universities, industry, and national laboratories are best positioned to provide the innovative and transformative approaches needed for us to realize the enormous potential of nuclear energy technology. Research is an opportunity to discover and evaluate new ideas and technologies, and it thrives on a diversity of approaches and differing opinions and perspectives. CINR programs have provided a platform for researchers for more than a decade to propose the most creative solutions to the challenges that are facing nuclear energy today. Since the start of programs such as the Nuclear Energy University Program, NEUP, Integrated University Program, IUP, Nuclear Energy Enabling Technologies, Cross-Cutting Technology Development, NEAT, CTD, and Nuclear Science User Facilities, NSUF, we have seen great success and growth. There is a quiz at the end of this presentation, so I hope you've got all the acronyms down. This is evident, though, in the more than $800 million invested in students, universities, national laboratories, and industry across the United States through these programs. Funding has gone to 125 different universities, 7 national laboratories, and 11 industry/utilities that represent 42 states and the District of Columbia. This past year, CINR experienced a great turnaround when the Office of Nuclear Energy announced more than $65 million in support of 93 CINR research and development and infrastructure projects. This comes after a year of budget constraints where 58 projects were awarded $49 million. The projects coming out of these programs span the full spectrum of nuclear energy research, including development of advanced reactor concepts that can expand market opportunities for nuclear energy and help decarbonize energy-intensive markets, technologies to ensure a sustainable nuclear fuel cycle, and advanced modeling and simulation methods to better understand nuclear reactor and fuel system behavior. So, as we find ourselves in a time with so many unknowns, we need to remain steadfast in our mission and remember that the work we're doing is crucial to the future of the nuclear industry. These programs have brought great innovation and collaborations with both domestic and international partners to develop cutting-edge solutions. I am absolutely thrilled to be here to help kick things off today and look forward to seeing your successes. And I'm coming to you today from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where my home is. And I wanted to leave you with a quote from Andy Warhol, who is an artist who was born here in Pittsburgh. And he said, "They always say time changes things, but you actually have to change them for yourself." So I look forward to see what you submit for these applications and look forward to great change in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Baranwal. Now we'll go back to Dr. John Gilligan.
Thank you, Rita, very much. We really appreciate your support. And I think I'm going to share my camera here too. Thank you for being with us. By the way, I'm in North Carolina. So again, we're because of the COVID situation and the effort that we're putting into it, we're moving around the country and for these very important presentations. Also, I wanted to introduce from DOE the team lead that we have, part of Rita's team that's heading up the program. Aaron Gravel is our program manager. Mike Worley, Assistant DAS. Alice Campanetti is the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Reactor Fleet and Advanced Reactor Deployment. And we really appreciate the support and leadership provided by DOE and during this entire process. Also, our INR office is located, of course, at the Idaho National Laboratory. And Greg Belay is our manager out there. Drew Thomas leads up the team, and we really appreciate, and Julie is part of that team too, in presenting our program for today. And so without further ado, what I'm going to do is introduce, to kick off some of the details associated with the program, is Joanne Hanners, who is the DOE contracting officer. She's very important in the sense, she's the one that negotiates all the contracts with all the universities and really gets the money to all the universities and the students and everybody else out there. So Joanne Hanners will join us right now, the DOE contracting officer located at DOE Idaho in Idaho Falls, Idaho. So Joanne, are you with us to talk about the program, your important duties as procurement and doing the contract negotiations and so forth?
Yes, I'm here. Okay, thank you, John, and I'd like to welcome everyone to our CNR kickoff meeting for the 2021. First, we'll go over the important part of if you have a question during this webinar. To ensure that you go to the bottom, there's a picture on the slide, and you will go ahead and type in your question there. And if we're able to get you during the webinar, we'll answer that question. If not, we'll email you separately with an answer. I will cover today the FY 2020 outcomes for you. First, we'd like to let you know that in FY 2020, DOE awarded over $65 million in nuclear energy research, cross-cutting technology development, facility access, and infrastructure awards for 93 advanced nuclear technology projects in 28 states. The awards were funded for nuclear energy-related research through the NUP program, the NSUF program, and the NEAT programs. And if you listened carefully to Rita, you'll remember what all of those are. With these awards, DOE's Office of Nuclear Energy has now awarded more than $800 million to continue American leadership in clean energy innovation and to train the next generation of nuclear energy engineers and scientists through the competitive process since 2009. So let's go over a high-level overview of the FY20 NEAP outcomes. So we had 560 pre-applications received, 221 applications were invited, 250 full applications were received. And all of that boiled down to 57 applications being recommended. This included 3 uninvited applications over 56 individual lead PIs. And if you look at the bottom, you can see the chart that shows you the different areas. The FY20 NEAT overview, we had 71 pre-applications, 14 invited applications, 21 full applications, and of that was 5 recommended applications, which was 1 uninvited application and 5 individual lead PIs. The 2020 NSUF overview, we had 100 pre-selected applications received, and that also included the pre-applications for the late stage NSUF call. 35 uninvited applications, 31 full applications, and of those, 7 applications were recommended with 7 individual lead PIs. The DOE mission is to advance U.S. nuclear power in order to meet the nation's energies by first, enhancing the long-term viability and competitiveness of the existing U.S. reactor fleet, developing an advanced reactor pipeline, and thirdly, implementing and maintaining the national strategic fuel cycle and supply chain infrastructure. Now, your application submitted under this FOA must demonstrate a strong tie to one of those 3 priorities. NE conducts cross-cutting nuclear energy and for research and development and associated infrastructure support activities to develop innovative technologies that offer promise of dramatically improved performance for the mission's needs while maximizing the impact of DOE resources. Some FOA highlights of this funding mechanism is with universities, national labs, industry, and NSUF access, which is done by cooperative agreements, work for other agreements or authorizations, and NSUF user agreements. Eligibility requirements, we need to ensure that R&D is delivered on time to support programmatic missions. We encourage diverse participation. And we look at, based upon no cost extensions and the project load of the university applying. Our official FOA for this year of 2021 will be DE FOA 0002361 and will be available at grants.gov. And as usual, you will apply at neap.gov. So some important dates that you all are looking forward to, and I would like you to mark your calendars so we don't miss any of these. The FOA will be released pending final approval August of 2020. Our NSUF LOIs are due September 2nd. The R&D NSUF pre-applications are due September 23rd. He's the lead CINR activities and integration office.
Thank you, Joanne. Just so the audience can understand here, in order to have a more reliable internet connection and better audio quality, we did decide to hold this overview at the Idaho National Laboratory offices in Idaho Falls, Idaho. There are 3 individuals in the room, socially distanced, more than 12 feet apart. All of us are wearing cloth face coverings. The closest individual to this podium is approximately 12 to 18 feet. And we're not sharing any microphones, and they have been sanitized. And we will reduce down to minimum staffing levels once these overview presentations and questions and answers finalize. With that, let's move on to the FOA overview. I wanted also to announce that nup.gov and the associated proposal website is currently down. INL is doing some maintenance on those systems, and we don't have an expected time for those to be up. As a courtesy, we have sent out an email with the webinar link and a webinar schedule for your use. If you don't have that webinar schedule, please reach out to nup@inl.gov to receive a copy. The FOA is organized into 2 different sections. Appendix A, which is university-led R&D. This has a program supporting and a mission supporting section. Appendix B is the University, National Laboratory, and Industry-led, as Rita mentioned, NEAT and NSUF work scopes. These are program supporting. Industry may only lead in NSUF work scopes. The program is divided in this way, program supporting and mission supporting, to differentiate what types of work scopes each work scope is. Program supporting supports any programs. They're defined and focused on by the statement of objectives developed by the responsible program managers. These work scopes are typically narrower in focus and are defined to support program specific needs. Mission supporting must also support any mission, but it includes research in fields and disciplines of nuclear science and engineering that may not fully align with current program work that's ongoing in the department. For Appendix A, university-led R&D, the award size for program supporting work is up to $800,000. Mission supporting work is up to $400,000. Please pay attention to the specific work scope area. Those are up to amounts. So there are program supporting areas that are less than a maximum of $800,000. Period of performance for these projects is up to 3 years. Only universities are eligible to lead. National laboratory, industry, and universities are eligible to collaborate in these areas. The estimated funding level for this year is approximately $40 million, totaling approximately 40 awards. For Appendix B, NEAT, CTD, and NSUF work scopes, NEAT work scopes are up to $1 million. NSUF work scopes for an R&D request are up to $500,000 in NSUF 1 work scopes, and up to $4 million for irradiation and PIE, 1.5 for irradiations, and $750,000 for beamline or PIE access requests for the NSUF 2 work scopes. The period of performance is up to 3 years, or up to 7 if irradiation and PIE are proposed in NSUF work scopes. These work scopes are eligible for lead applicants from universities, national laboratories, and industries, with the exception of NSUF 2.1, which can only be led by industry. The estimated number of awards is approximately 3 million in NEAT and NEAT supported work scopes, with up to $4 million for NSUF access, totaling approximately 7 awards. This is a lead institution participation summary. Appendix A, U.S. universities are the only institutions that can lead. Appendix B, U.S. universities, national laboratories, and industry. Those applications may request R&D support. They may be CINR sponsored R&D with NSUF sponsored access in applicable work scopes titled NSUF 1, or applicants may request NSUF access only in the NSUF 2 work scopes. Those overviews will take place later today. The page limits for different activities are outlined below. There is a 2-page limit for letter of intent for NSUF access applications, up to 3 pages for pre-applications, up to 10 pages for full application R&D support requests, and up to 15 full pages for full applications that involve both R&D scope and NSUF access. In terms of collaborations, DOE has a additional consideration provided for the research portfolio for minority serving institutions, underrepresented groups, industry and international collaborations. For university-led applications, non-university collaborators in composite can account for no more than 20% of the proposed government cost. And applications with international collaborators are encouraged, but US dollars cannot go to those international collaborators. In terms of international collaborations, please ensure that the application can stand on US funding alone, meaning that the international collaboration would stand alone and could potentially be excluded if necessary. There is additional consideration given in the relevancy review scoring for the degree to which minority serving institutions, underrepresented groups, international or industry partners participate in the project. The minority serving institution designation is attributed at the institutional level based on a listing maintained by the Department of Education. Underrepresented groups are attributed at the individual level and are based on voluntary self-identification within the application. National laboratories are not considered as a diverse partnership for this scoring area. Collaborations are evaluated as part of the relevancy review, as I just said, but collaborations are not required to score the highest scores on the relevancy review. I'm going to review the policy updates and reminders. For those that have already read the FOA in past years, these are the new items that the CINR office has decided to highlight for the FOA. Please do take advantage of rereading the FOA once it comes out and is released. This is not a replacement for reading the FOA. If you've not read it before, please also take the opportunity to do so. Here's some key points. Font sizing applies to all pages of the document and includes references and tables. Graphic elements such as access labels and legends can be in a lesser but legible font. It's important to recognize that to create fairness in the application process, we do need to enforce font sizing limits as outlined in the FOA. Any font sizing issues will be redacted to create that fairness of opportunity. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, FY 2016 through 2019 active projects will not be counted toward the eligibility restrictions for the FY 2021 process. For NSUF applications, NSUF tech leads and instrument scientists for the first time should be listed as collaborators. And I'll go over some detailed collaborator guidance later in this presentation. Lead applicants must have an account on NEUP.gov to make an application, and the application, starting with the pre-application submission, must be submitted by the same institution as the lead applicant. This means a co-PI from another institution or a co-PI from a national laboratory is not allowed to submit on behalf of the lead institution. CINR reviews, these are some reminders that were established last year, but I want to remind you about today. CINR reviews are no longer performed in a semi-blind format. This means that you can use your name, your institution's name, national laboratory names, and co-PI or collaborator names in your project narrative. All CINR applications must include a list of publications resulting from previous CINR work in the pre-application phase, and statement of work are not considered a review document. This means that upon submission, your statement of work will not be reviewed by the relevancy reviewers or by your technical peer reviewers. Any technical content that you want to convey to the review committee needs to be in your project narrative. Some further reminders, PIs and collaborators are considered final when the pre-application is submitted. Extenuating circumstances will be addressed on a case-by-case basis. The PI is responsible for selection of the appropriate work scope. Full applications must be competed in the work scope that the pre-application was submitted to, and applications may only be competed in a single work scope area. For review purposes, conflict of interest restrictions, if necessary, will be applied at the individual level, not the institution. And applicants are responsible for not exceeding the submission limit. Materials required by the FOA must be submitted by the published deadlines. Any material received outside of the system or after the deadline may not be considered. Uninvited applications may be submitted as full applications per the stipulations in the FOA. And uninvited applications associated with NSUF submissions may not be submitted as full applications due to the expense associated with feasibility assessments for full applications. U.S. funding may not be provided to international institutions. And for university applications in Appendix A, non-university collaborators in composite can have no more than 20% of the total funds provided by the government. Finally, in regard to some information for post-award negotiation, there is a thing called pre-award costs, where recipients may charge allowable costs to an award 90 days immediately preceding the effective award date. Please obtain approval for this through the DOE contracting officer, and recipients are responsible for any pre-award costs if negotiations are not successful for some reason. Finally, do not lock cells in your budget spreadsheets. DOE Idaho does a comprehensive technical budget review, and applications with locked cells make that process much more difficult, so they may be disregarded without further review. I want to speak for a moment about our project and PI transfer policy. Applications submitted to this FOA will be awarded to the applicant institution, not the lead PI, and cannot be transferred pre-award if the lead PI changes institutions. An application is considered submitted once the pre-application is submitted. PIs that are moving from one institution to another during or after the CINR review process are subject to DOE's PI move/change policy, which is explained in detail at nup.gov. And awards for this FOA are made to the applying institution and will remain at that institution for the duration of the project. Any additional changes to partners or collaborators must be approved by the DOE contracting officer. If you do have a situation where a PI, co-PI, or collaborator needs to change after the pre-application is submitted, you'll need to reach out directly to nup@inl.gov for guidance. Collaborators are what we term anybody who's participating in the project in CINR. So there are other funding agencies that use different designations, such as institutional co-PI, or national laboratory co-PI. For all intents and purposes in the CINR, all of those individuals are considered collaborators. As a definition, any individual making a defined material contribution critical to the success of the project and or contributing to joint publications is considered a collaborator. Individuals appearing in the project summary, technical narrative, benefits of collaboration, coordination and management plan, or budget documents should absolutely be listed directly on the application form. Individuals not meeting those criteria should not be listed. Once again, as a reminder and a new policy this year, NSUF tech leads and instrument scientists should be listed as collaborators to better facilitate conflict of interest management. PIs are required to certify that all collaborators are listed on the application form and have agreed to participate in the project. You must list all individuals involved in the project, including those from your same institution, on the application form. If you do not list all collaborators, your application may be dismissed. There are two policy drivers driving this policy. It may seem a little superfluous to have such a strict policy here, but I want to describe why we have it. First, we must be able to identify all individuals involved in the project for conflict of interest purposes. This is a technical peer review process, which means that we do need to fully understand the entire conflict of interest situation. Second, we must verify that all individuals listed on the application are aware and agree to the obligations outlined in the project proposal. Please ensure, whether or not you talk to an individual while preparing an application, that they have agreed to be listed on that application. Let's shift to submittal guidelines and eligibility. This is a special note due to the COVID-19 pandemic FY 2016 through 2019 active projects will not be counted toward the eligibility restrictions. As I describe these, if you do have a current FY 2016 through 2019 project, keep that in mind. The following applicants are ineligible to apply to any area of the FOA as lead PI if they have a currently funded IRP project that will go through December 31st, 2021, or they have 3 active R&D projects that will go through December 31st, 2021. This excludes NSUF2 projects and any NSUF project that has a duration greater than 3 years. If the PI has a no-cost extension that will still be active beyond December 31st, 2021, they will also be ineligible. There is a pre-application submittal limit for university PIs. They can only submit 6 pre-applications in total, with no more than 3 of those submissions as lead PI. The full application submittal limit is that a university PI can have no more than 1 IRP project or 3 active R&D projects at a time, and they may not submit more full applications than they are eligible to win. Appendix B applicants are limited to 3 applications per institution per work scope area, and existing no-cost extensions that will end before December 31st, 2021 are not subject to any of these restrictions. As a reminder, no-cost extension requests for projects ending in FY 2021 must be submitted by April 15th, 2021. For NEAT cross-cut funded research, once again, universities, national laboratory, and industry are limited to 3 pre-applications per institution per work scope area. And for university PIs, these submissions will count toward your pre-application limits. NSUF access only, NSUF2 applications are exempt from these eligibility restrictions. A reminder on cost sharing. For applications led by universities, cost sharing is permitted but not required. For applications led by entities that are not universities or FFRDCs, a cost share of at least 20% of total allowable costs is required. This cost sharing requirement does not apply to the value of NSUF access. And cost sharing is also not an evaluated criteria, so relevancy and technical peer reviewers will not receive cost sharing information. I want to finish the presentation out with the review process tools and submission requirements. The uninvited pre-application process, with the exception of NSUF applications, pre-applications that are not invited may still be submitted as full applications. As a reminder, uninvited pre-applications that are received as full applications must meet the following criteria to move on to a full technical peer review. For relevancy, they have to have an average score of at least high relevance, and program priority, an average score of at least moderate program priority. If you do not pass those minimum marks, you will not receive a full technical peer review on your full application. This is a breakdown of the weighting based on different program designations. For mission supporting, it's an 80% technical, 20% relevancy review split. For program supporting an NSUF access only program, 65% technical and 35% technical or relevancy. Again, as a reminder, semi-blind reviews do not happen. You can use your name, your co-PI or collaborator names in the project narrative document. The evaluation for this review process follows traditional peer review. Program supporting and mission supporting applications are reviewed in with the following paradigm. Pre-applications receive 2 relevancy reviews and at least 1 peer review. This results in an invited or not invited status. Full applications typically have 2 relevancy reviews and 3 peer reviews, although we can pursue more reviews if needed. There are additional tools that will be available once the FOA releases on nup.gov. Those include the eligibility restriction workflow, which will take you through any questions you have about eligibility, and then the R&D federal and technical points of contact, who are the individuals who you can contact with technical questions while preparing your applications. For contact information, as I mentioned, the list of TPOCs and federal program contacts will be available at nup.gov upon release of the FOA. For any procurement questions, our DOE Idaho contract specialist is Andrew Ford. His email is listed below. And for any general application or submittal questions, please reach out to the NE Integration Office. My number is the first one listed. You can also contact Greg Belay, which is the second number listed, or email nup@inl.gov. That email address is actively managed, and we'll answer your questions within a few days. Just to review what Joanne went over, the FY 2021 important dates are the FOA release is August 2020, sometime this month. NSUF LOIs will be due September 2nd. Pre-applications due September 23rd. The preliminary statement of work for NSUF will be November 12th. Full application invitations will happen in the December 2020 timeframe. The final statement of work for NSUF will be due January 22nd, 2021, and full R&D applications will be due February 11th, 2021. When the website is up, please do visit nup.gov for any questions about the FOA. Like I said, it will not be released for several more weeks, but please keep in contact either through nup.gov, through Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, our social media channels for additional updates. And with that, we'll open up with questions. We're going to do an alternate kind of question and answer here. We have Joanne, who's moved to a different office in the back. She will be available to answer any procurement questions. I have a variety of other people, including Aaron Gravel, the team lead at DOE headquarters, John Gilligan, and myself to answer any other questions. So with that, we'll open up for questions.
Okay, our first question. Do you support LOI out of the FOA scopes related to NEUP, especially continuation of past projects?
So in terms of the letter of intent, there are two different aspects of the FOA. There are 2-page letters of intent that are due for NSUF work scopes only. NEUP work scopes and Appendix A work scopes do not have a letter of intent. To answer the second half of the question, DOE NE does take new applications for the new work scopes that will be available. It may happen to be that there is a current ongoing NEUP project that some continuation work would continue on from that project, but any DOE NE through the CINR FOA only accepts new applications, meaning you are welcome to reference your current or past work or others' current or past CINR work, but these will be considered new applications and be reviewed likewise.
Will there be any criteria focused on early career researchers being PIs, such as assistant professors without a previous award as a PI?
So the answer is no, we don't have an early career program. We do track that data quite closely after each year of CINR awards. And our data shows that there's usually between 20 and 30% of early career PIs that get awarded NEUP projects, which has indicated to us that the young career faculty are doing quite well as lead PI researchers.
Let me just add to that, Drew. If you include assistant and associate professors, it's closer to 50% of the awards are at that level. So there's quite a good representation of young faculty in the whole process, and quite well represented in this entire process. We don't take into account specifically age or faculty rank or anything like that, but assistant and associate professors have done very well.
Thanks, John.
On the Appendix B restriction of 3 submittals per institution, it is very difficult to control who submits. You mean we have to police who, in such a large university as ours, does submit? What happens if 4 are submitted?
Thanks for that question. Yes, the institution is responsible for following the eligibility restrictions. I understand that may be difficult in the larger universities and the national labs. I am aware that larger institutions do set up procedures and processes to be able to process those applications beforehand. If there is a violation of the eligibility restrictions, that is elevated to the DOE contracting officer, who will then make a determination about a path forward to either accept or reject specific applications. So that's really at the determination of the contracting officer at that point. Joanne, do you want to add anything there? Or you? No? Okay.
How do you average 2 relevancy reviews? Example, you get a high and moderate rating. Does this allow you to submit a full proposal?
So in the pre-application phase, the reviews, you don't think of them as binding in any way. The pre-application process is intended to give you a focus of both relevancy and a short technical review to understand where the application may stand from a technical space and from a program priority space. So anybody is welcome to submit a full application that's not in an NSUF work scope. The key consideration there is to understand the comments that you're given and to try to improve that application from a relevancy standpoint. When we say average, that means that if there is a high relevance and a low relevance, for example, that would be a moderate relevance, and it would not pass forward for the full application review stage. What we recommend for PIs to do is to look at your pre-application reviews, see if there's some type of recovery plan to be able to submit a full application, or there's a real possibility that there were so many high quality applications in a pre-application area that only a certain number of those that were high relevance were going to be passed forward for a full application review. So please look closely at those relevancy reviews, the relevancy comments, and make a determination that way.
Next question. If I have an NEUP project that was scheduled to end September 30th, 2020, but I got a no-cost extension to September 2021, will this count against my number of proposals?
So once again, any no-cost extension that does not go past December 31st, 2021 will not be counted toward your eligibility restriction or your eligibility to apply for specific applications. Once again, a reminder, projects that were funded FY 2016 through 2019 are exempt from the eligibility restrictions because of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay, will there be a US-UK collaboration call for some of the work scopes this year? And if so, which work scopes will be considered for this joint program?
The FOA is still being finalized. So for NSUF technical leads being listed as a collaborator, no, those individuals are designated by the NSUF office. They will be listed on the applications this year. But if the question is if it's a university PI that is also designated as an NSUF technical lead, no, those individuals manage the NSUF process at their institution. They do not necessarily directly participate in the research and development work that's ongoing.
Drew, could you go back over the US-UK information? The audio cut out on that section.
Yeah, there's no information on the US-UK collaboration. That's an ongoing collaboration that DOE NE holds, and I don't have any information on whether that's going to be an active area this year. And once the FOA finalizes, we'll clarify that point.
Do you accept new applications out of the scope of current FOA but closely related to NEUP mission? If so, how would we submit them?
If I'm understanding the question correctly, it would be an application that may not be directly related to a scope. If I'm understanding that question, the answer is no. We do not have a general area where we accept applications that do not apply to a specific scope. There is an unsolicited solicitation or application program through DOE that's run through NREL if you have a specific idea that you'd want reviewed that's unsolicited. So if you need more information on that process or some information about that, you can contact me directly and I can point you in that direction.
I do see a note here from Michael Worley at DOE NE, and he says he can clarify the UK point that they are unable to participate this year.
Thanks, Mike. I wasn't 100% sure, so thank you for that clarification.
This is John Gilligan again. Let me just comment on the blue sky possibility. There is no blue sky work scope this year as of right now. That could change. There's been some discussion that needs to be tightened up a little bit, but that has not been fully decided. But right now there is no blue sky work scope available to submit proposals that are of the grand challenge nature that we had last year. However, nothing was awarded last year, as I recall.
And John, that's a good point to make about the work scopes in general. As many of you probably know, the draft work scopes were released Friday afternoon. Those are in draft status, meaning that until the FOA releases, those are proposed work scopes, but they may and probably will change before the FOA releases. So please be aware that you have a draft document.
Okay, it looks like this might be our last question. It says, is there an institutional limit to the number of proposals or only an individual limit as 3 as PI and 3 as co-PI?
So for university PIs, the application limit applies at the individual level. For Appendix B work scopes, the application limit applies at the institution, meaning no more than 3 per work scope per institution. So that question really depends on what your status is, where you're employed at. And for the most part, I think the individual is probably a university professor. Your application limit would apply to yourself. So that means that larger universities can have a multitude of different applications from several different lead PIs.
Yeah, this is John Gilligan again. The only university limit is for infrastructure that will be discussed later, and that's 1 per university, as I recall, in both on the reactor side and the GSI side. But there is no limit for universities on the R&D side.
Thanks, John. Erin Gravel from DOE NE has just provided one clarification, and it's that they're targeting the week of August 17th for both the CINR and the infrastructure FOA release. So that's the target.
Thanks for that, Erin.
Arthur Mata says, I do not see work scopes for some, or webinars for work scopes such as RC8.
So as a general reminder, the work scopes the work scope presentations have been grouped by program area. So RC8 is an LWRS area, and I believe that is, I want to say Wednesday morning. And it's noted as RC6 through 10, meaning that 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 will be covered in the same presentation by the LWRS group. And please be aware that those work scope names do change, and they have changed in several different instances this year. They don't completely track with previous FOAs.
Okay. If someone helped write a specific scope in the call for the TPOC, could that person participate by collaborating on a proposal for that specific topic?
So the federal and technical points of contact, the national technical directors, do have input in writing these work scopes. The contracting officer will take that on a case-by-case basis to understand who has been involved in the development of those scopes. As a general comment, it is a conflict of interest for anybody who wrote the specific work scope to participate as a collaborator in some instance. Joanne, do you want to clarify there? Okay, sounds good. I got the thumbs up, so I'm going to take that as enough. If there are specific circumstances or questions, please do ask any integration office or contact Andrew Ford, who's our DOE contract specialist, for any clarifications and determinations on conflict of interest.
Okay, it looks like that's all the questions we have for now. We will be back at 9 a.m. Mountain, 11 a.m. Eastern Time with the NSUF overview and NSUF2 work scopes and FOAs with Simon Pimblott.